have to
the
be
statement
run
of
by
costs
River.
against the Multnomah Neighborhood
What river?
Association.
Yeah, just look it up. Little Free Library on the web. Little Free
Okay.
Library.
As I usually do, before we start the meeting, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or silence it.
Yes, thank you.
So I will call the City Commission regular session to order for Wednesday, October 17th, 2018. Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Ide? Here. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
Commissioner Mengelberg? Here. Mayor Holliday?
Here. Please stand and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we have a bunch of proclamations. I normally don't read proclamations, so we have a proclamation 1849 declaring November 1st, 2018 as Extra Mile Day, and that's in the packet if you want to read it. We have a proclamation for the 98th annual Oregon City Westland Rivalry Day. That's also in the attachments, and I'll be reading that at the rivalry breakfast. I think it's next Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday morning, 6:30.
6:30. Oh. I'm semi-retired.
Axelrod will be there.
Yeah, and then, so now we have Larry Didway, the superintendent of Oregon City Schools, with a presentation on the Oregon City School District. Mr. Didway?
All right. Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. As you said, I'm Larry Didway, Superintendent for Oregon City School District, and with me here is Connie Kurdeman, the chair of our school board. And we are really pleased to be here tonight to share with you an update since last we spoke. This board has voted and placed on the November 6th ballot a bond measure, and we want to share a little bit with you what that bond measure would do for our community and our schools. You can go to the next. Oh, do we have the slide control here, don't we? There we go. All right.
In Oregon City and our school district, we have a lot to celebrate. We're a leader in educational options, community partnerships. We have amazing students and staff and fiscal responsibility. At this juncture, I will note that Oregon City School District, for the 26th consecutive year, has received state and national awards for excellence in accounting. We've also received awards in our fiscal responsibility, good stewardship of the money that we're entrusted with. And we do take that extremely seriously, making sure that each student receives an excellent education with the tax dollars that we're entrusted with.
Yeah. However, we do also face some challenges. So our infrastructure is severely outdated. We have a number of facilities that are quite old. In fact, our newest, I like to point out, our newest middle school was built the year that I was born, and that's one of our newest facilities. The last time we built a new facility in Oregon City School District was when we built the Oregon City High School, which was built in 2003 is when it opened up. That was as a result of a bond last passed in the year 2000. We also have been facing, though, a declining investment from the state of Oregon in education. And our enrollment has declined during the last decade as well. And so those things combined have put a lot of fiscal stress on our system for operations. It's important that I note here, though, that our operations budget is completely separate from our infrastructure budget. And one of the great things about the school bond is that it is one of the few things where all of that revenue will remain here in Oregon City and goes right to Oregon City School District school district for the purposes of building facilities. And that is not true with some of your other tax dollars, which go to the state and then come through a complicated formula back to us in some form. But this investment is long past due, and we've done a thorough assessment of our facilities, and the report came back saying that we had a lot of updating to do. While they were aged, they were well cared for, but they had, in many cases, expired. And as a consequence, there's a higher cost of operating because it costs a lot more to maintain aged facilities.
And I will just add to that some of our systems are so old, we can no longer buy parts for them. So our maintenance staff is amazing, and duct tape, and there you have it, so.
Yeah.
Are you moving the slide?
Yeah, I'm waiting for somebody else.
Okay. So the bond is to raise $158 million, which seems like a lot, but unfortunately does not go as far as we would like it to. $158 million will replace Gardner Middle School. We will have major investments in Ogden Middle School, and we will be upgrading safety and security at every district building. And we will also be investing in deferred maintenance. We need new roofs, new HVAC systems, lighting, traffic systems. Everything needs some work. So the $158 million, what that translates to taxpayers is for, say, a home that is assessed at $300,000, you would be paying $2.50 increase a month, or $30 a year. So the current tax rate is $1.14, and we're asking to go to $1.24 per 1,000 of assessed home value.
All right. So as Connie shared, this bond is really designed to do three things. We've spent almost 2 years with a robust public process of generating our needs, comparing those to our dreams, and trying to come up with a plan to get there. And while this $158 million doesn't get us all the way there, it takes a significant step toward making some significant improvements. The first and foremost of those is regarding safety and security. This would attach safety and security efforts at every single building that we have. What that would look like is at the elementary level, for example, creating new entries. As you can imagine, safety and security measures and safety and security needs are completely different today than they were 50, much less 75 and 85 years ago. And so it would also include, as was previously mentioned, reconfiguration of the parent drop-off and pickup areas where we have some significant issues related to student safety as well, trying to keep buses and cars and pedestrians away from each other and not sharing some of the same spaces, providing new accessible parking, creating or relocating main offices for better view of the school and of the school entries, creating a better surveillance of our main entries and other areas of the campuses. And those changes would happen in every building. The reducing overcrowding is really specifically at the middle level. We have middle level facilities that where we have a large percentage of our student population is in portable or temporary classrooms. And we would replace the Gardner Middle School campus entirely and build that on the existing Gardner site while the old Gardner was serving. And then at Ogden, we would be doing significant renovations there on that campus. At the same time, we would be making a longer term investment in a property to down the road build a new Ogden and convert the current Ogden into an elementary school. And then we would be upgrading and updating schools. And as Connie said earlier, we literally have systems that we can't buy replacement parts for. So that's a significant improvement for operating costs as well as and efficiencies. So at this point, I guess we would invite you to ask any questions that you might have. Anybody?
I got to kind of sit on the bond task force
Yeah.
with Mr. Didway there, and it was interesting where we started at and where we've ended up at, because once the costs started rolling in, and we're finding out, I sit on the police court building facility with Chief Ban here, and the project changes as the costs come in, especially nowadays. And I know that originally this started out as a new middle school at Gardner and a new middle school at Ogden, I think.
Yeah, it was
That's correct.
the one of the proposals originally that we were sharing and getting feedback from the public on included building a new Ogden Middle School adjacent to Holcomb Elementary, and as we watched the market shift and that accelerated, we realized we couldn't raise the funds necessary to do that in this one fell swoop.
Yeah. So what do you see, like 5 years, 10 years or something now, Larry? I mean, obviously, we're going to have Gardner now. What's going to be the next thing, you think?
Yeah, well, looking down the road and paying attention to our population forecasts, which of course are also dynamic and has a lot to do with our local and state and national economy, we would predict that we would, through increased assessed value and population growth in Oregon City, we would be ready to pass another bond and construct a new Ogden Middle School, and so continue the plan that we originally designed, but it would be on a different timetable. At that point, we'd also be ready to and need to open up another elementary school, and we would convert Ogden into that, the existing Ogden campus into that. There are, and I'm sure you guys, because we use the same demographer, so you know that we've got a low, medium, and high prediction for what our population may look like, and really the underlying factor there is the economy, and that's what will determine how soon that would need to happen.
But it's interesting how you try to forecast for students, because
Yeah.
I think was that a 40-unit or a subdivision that went in next to Holcomb?
Yes.
Or was it bigger than that?
Yeah.
I think it was around 40 or something, and you got one
29,
student
yeah.
out of that?
One kindergarten.
Yeah. At the elementary level, only one student, and that's something related to housing, and which is an issue I know, and Nancy and I serve on a task force together, that we're talking about around our entire region, and the homes that you're referring to, Commissioner Shaw, are the ones that are adjacent to the Holcomb Elementary School, and those homes were in the $500,000 range. That's not a starter home for a young family, so it's not terribly surprising that there are no little kids that live there. I will admit that when our demographer first told us not to expect anything and expect a negligible impact on the school from that, I thought he was crazy. And I was very worried about being caught flat-footed without a teacher in a room for a new classroom of kids. And his prediction was almost spot on. And it really has to do with the home value. Okay.
So assuming that the bond passes, do you have a proposed construction schedule? I mean, where all these
Yeah.
renovations and the new
Yeah,
building
yeah.
would be complete by, or?
Yes, we do. It's a proposed schedule.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. As we know, it never goes as quickly as we
Yeah.
would like it to. But when the bond passes, some construction would start in the summer of 2019, most likely at elementaries, doing the safety and security upgrades, yes. And then the Gardner site would be, really the major undertaking. And that is going to be done while kids are actually still attending in the building. And we'll be building right on the site there, but that won't start until 2020.
Where our greatest hope would be that we could open that school up in 2021.
Yes.
And there are lots of caveats to that, as you know, through the design process, permitting process, and who knows what else you might encounter. Not to mention also currently we're in a construction market that dictates some of those timelines for you. So, but that would be our hope.
I have been asked quite a bit why we chose Gardner to be Marie built first, and quite honestly, it's because it's in much worse shape. I know no one asked that question, but I get asked that question a lot, so.
Well, at least you're not continuing the abandonment of Central Oregon City, so.
No,
No.
no, sir.
No.
You know that's a pet peeve of mine. Mr. O'Donnell?
Yeah.
So I'll preface this with a statement that, for Mr. Didwood, I have the greatest respect for you as an educator and as an administrator. And I'm going to speak up here as, first as a commissioner and second as a private citizen. It troubles me somewhat in past appearances before this commission that capacity issues have never been raised or the school has not been represented on annexations and the impact of attendance at the schools. I think things you're going to face are questions regarding the leasing of schools that are supposedly seismically unsafe to other entities that use them. You know, are their children less valuable than ours? People are of the perception that the old school can't be used at all, where it's a question of some floors can't be used, but some can. I went to a neighborhood meeting, and I'll speak from the position of just being a citizen now. That meeting seemed to reveal from the people that represented the bond that the total impact of student attendance would be plus 100 students. And then the question is, do we really have to build a school if the attendance is just simply plus 100? To your point, if component systems are failing, would it not be more cost effective to address those rather than raise the buildings and start over? I remember the first presentations here, and they were focused on upgrading technology, and attendance and the ability and capacity was never an issue. And I don't remember security being an issue, and certainly no one is not in favor of security in view of headlines. Although I do see that you're leading with that as a tactic, that's excellent, but as an allocation of the total value of the bond, I think it represents about 16%. And I could be off on that, but that was in your brochure also. Mm-hmm. So there's a part of me that wishes these were separate measures in front of the community, with security being one, reduction of overcrowding, which I understand is only focused at the middle level schools. And I would have liked to have heard that many meetings ago. And the upgrade and update of the schools has always been the emphasis to date. So I think you're going to face some challenges in getting support for this, but we'll see what the voting population says. So I wanted to give you input both as a commissioner and as a private citizen.
Mm-hmm. And can I respond?
Certainly, please do.
So you started off with population for. I'm not sure what 100 students you're speaking about. So
That's what the calculation was by your people at the Tower Vista Neighborhood Association.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they were probably sharing our population forecasts from PSU and those numbers and the median range. Expected increase at the middle level would only be 100, and that's the medium range. There's a high range and there's a low range as well, and that would be true. But what that point misses is that currently a third of the students are not in permanent facilities. They are in temporary facilities. So that's the correction that we're trying to address. Related to annexation, the district comments on all annexation requests and submits that. Yep. I know we do. I know we do.
I don't see a representative in front of this commission
off,
when it comes up.
and we don't. And we take the stance that we don't really. It is not up to the district to approve or disapprove of or campaign for or against an annexation. That is a community decision. Our responsibility is to provide an educational experience for every kid who lives and is a part of our school district, And so in many cases, when you're talking about annexation, you're annexing students that are already a part of Oregon City School District. It affects the city. It does not necessarily affect the school district because we don't share the same boundaries. When you were talking about making improvements in the building, safety and security actually has always been one of the main focuses of this. We've spent more than 2 years doing thorough assessments and having robust conversations with multiple community groups about what was most important, and that's always come out number one. If you ask any parent, when we ask what is most important to you if we were going to making investments into the infrastructure here, that's the first thing they mention, which might be part of where there was some confusion about technology, because technology in terms of devices has never been on the table, not once. It was not even in a prototype of a conversation. The exception would be technology related to safety and security, and that has always been the case and would remain so.
And I can tell you that is not how it was represented at previous meetings. The technology was more about giving the student the greatest experience in the latest and greatest, whether it be in computer technology or the latest in.
That's a new one. I haven't heard that.
Well, maybe we should go back and look at a meeting together. I will say this, you know, my interest is in, providing essential services to all age groups, including students. And I'm certainly in favor of giving students the best experience. And I'll say finally, that you are the single best representative of the school district I've ever seen before this commission. So you should visit more frequently.
Yeah. The other thing I would share that could be a part of a technology conversation that's different than devices, is what many people think of, laptops, I mean, is the first, is related to career and technical education spaces. And there is a lot of technology involved in those. And that is a part of this bond, but it's a minor part of this bond. It's something that we would like to expand on, but as we revised our proposal to meet the means that we thought we had available to us, that diminished some.
What is the major part of the bond, of those three categories?
The largest part, is, as you would expect, is constructing. The construction of a brand new middle school and the significant renovation of a second middle school. That takes up the lion's share of the.
And what is the smallest part of the bond offering?
The smallest part would be the upgrading and updating.
Security?
Yeah. No.
Because I recall looking at, do you have your pamphlet? I thought it was a 16%.
It depends on what you're adding up for security, because when you take in the components of the two middle schools and add that to the separate security, the security on the pamphlet is just looking at the elementary and the high school level. It doesn't include the middle because that's represented in the second part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So before we finish up here, as we've been having discussions about urban renewal over the last few years, would you care to clarify for like the 17th time that how much money urban renewal takes away from funding for the Oregon City School District?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I would begin by saying Oregon school funding is kind of a half-day session. But I will give my but I'll give my few minutes summation related only to urban renewal. Urban renewal is really basically just setting aside otherwise property tax revenues that would go not directly to the school district, but to the state of Oregon. And once that arrives in the state of Oregon then, through a very complicated formula, allocates out, along with other tax revenues, its receipts to school districts on a per pupil basis. The property tax and the income tax, or largely income tax, part that comes to us, it gets offset in an equalization formula. So the direct impact on urban renewal to a local district is very negligible and very difficult to pinpoint exactly because it goes through so many funnels before it actually arrives back in our coffers.
Thank you. That was as good an explanation as you get, because it would take me a half an hour to explain tax increment and financing, so.
Yeah.
Do you have something else, Commissioner Shaw?
One other thing, and you kind of just touched on it, but see, everybody still thinks that property taxes are the main revenue source for your school, but it's not.
No, it's not.
66%
Minimal.
are income tax, and those are jobs.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. That's correct.
Anybody else? Anything further from you, Ms.
Did you have a video you wanted to share?
Yeah, we wanted to
Okay.
share a little video just to conclude. And before we share this, I just want to say thank you again for having us come and for the dialogue. We appreciate it. And I do have to say a special thank you to Commissioner Shaw for serving on one of our bond development task force. It's very helpful. And thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Here in the Oregon City School District, we have a lot to celebrate. Year after year, we have exceeded state testing averages at every grade level in every subject. And we have one of the highest graduation rates in the state. Did you know our graduation rates have been increasing? For the last 2 years, our graduation rate at Oregon City High School has been over 90%, 16 points higher than the state average. Additionally, our students have options for hands-on learning in partnership with local industries and colleges. Our district has also been recognized for keeping a sharp eye on the bottom line, winning national awards for financial oversight, and making every dollar count with limited budgets. Our students and teachers are achieving all these things in schools that are aging, crowded, and in need of repair. 2 schools are now 80 years old, and the average age of our schools is 61. Where were you in 1957? Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, a gallon of gas was 27 cents, and it cost 3 cents to mail a letter. Our aging schools impact student learning. Classrooms are too small, technology is out of date, and our heating and cooling systems are so old, the district can no longer find parts to repair them. Health and safety is a real concern. Many schools lack secure entries, security cameras, and emergency communication systems. To address these problems, the Oregon City School District has placed a school bond on the November ballot. The 2018 Oregon City School District bond will make improvements at every school in the district. Bond projects would address 3 areas crucial to student learning. It would prioritize safety and security in our schools by building secure entries at all schools, installing modern emergency communication systems, and updating security cameras. It would reduce middle school overcrowding by replacing Gardner Middle School and renovating Ogden Middle School. 10 portables would be eliminated. It would update school buildings and learning spaces by renovating or replacing HVAC systems, plumbing, roofs, and electrical systems in schools across the district. It would also install energy-efficient LED lighting and expand career and tech learning options in classrooms. Property owners in the Oregon City School District currently are paying $1.14 per thousand of assessed value. The proposed $158 million bond would cost taxpayers an additional 10 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. For example, owners of a home assessed at $300,000 could expect to pay $30 more per year, or $2.50 per month. If the bond does not pass, the safety, infrastructure, enhancement, and modernization projects outlined in this video could not be completed. Want to see a list of bond projects or learn more? Please visit ocschoolbond.org. And please remember to vote by November 6th.
I have one more question, Mr. Didway.
Here in the Oregon City School
If maybe we can get our technology straight. John, come on, I'm just having a little fun. So I have a particular interest in one school, and you might guess what school that is. So what exactly are you doing at Jennings Lodge?
Oh, at Jennings Lodge.
Well, my mom was secretary there for 30 years.
Yeah, I remember that. I was a teacher there when your mom was the secretary there. Yeah, so that's why I said, Dan Holliday can't be too bad because I know his mom, and she was
saving feature.
She was a jewel of a human. She is a jewel of a human being. Yeah, at Jennings Lodge we would be doing the same safety and security improvements that we would in other schools. Of course, in every building it's going to look a little different, and in that particular one. There are some, believe it or not, there are some already structures in place that will make some of the renovation there easier than it will be in some other places. For example, we won't need to relocate or redo the office because we've already done some of that there, but it'll receive the same kinds of improvements.
Well, I know, because my mom was not only secretary, but I went to school there, so, and I haven't been back in probably 15 years, but how did you secure the breezeway area and that, because you have that whole one wing that really the kids enter from the outside of the building?
Yeah, so currently it's with fencing and panic bars, and there's going to be a design phase that will determine exactly how that would be addressed, but that is a very significant issue in that particular campus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
coming, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, I lost my agenda. No, here it is. So now we're on to,
Resource,
Natural resources.
reading.
I thought we just did this.
No,
That was December 17th
Oh.
last year.
Oh, I could swore we had one earlier. So Natural Resources Committee annual update? Is there somebody here?
I believe we had a little miscommunication with the representative, so we will be bringing that back at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's why I was wondering, because I didn't see anybody here. So next up, we have citizen comments. Do we have anybody?
Of course.
I can't see my screen. Oh, of course.
Paul Edgar and
Paul
William.
Edgar and William Gifford. Come on up.
That's exactly what I was.
I remind you both, you have 3 minutes.
Combined or individually?
Use what? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let me just turn it on for you. Just make sure you hold it close to your mouth.
No, it's you first.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Paul Edgar from Kenema, and I'm representing to you, I'm here representing the Kenema, Friends of Kenema, a 501c3 dedicated to land use. Right here is a map of Kenema. Kenema was platted in 1865, and in this plat, it has 60-foot wide right-of-ways and 12-foot wide alleyways. All of these that are in the check marks here are public right-of-ways that are not improved or used by the city. So what's happening is a lot of these alleyways actually run right through houses that were houses like my house built in 1880, they just planted the house there. They didn't worry about a lot of surveys. Yeah, that was long ago. And we even have streets where we have unimproved or illegal pipes running right through them, and alleyways and streets without any permits, taking water from the historic Kenema wetlands and historic waterworks, and funneling it down all the way between 4th and 5th Avenue from Miller Street to Apperson Street, where it curls out and flows out onto the street and then into a city coffers there. No one has ever said anything about this, even though the pipe is so small. In recent years, when we've had major rainfalls, it flooded water all over Miller Street. In fact, it flooded it to a height where a planned development there would have 1 foot of water over the first floor of all of the houses. So that happened within the last 10 years, and no one seems to think about it. We have fences that are built right out into the city right-of-way in Gadong Street. It's 14 feet out. There's about 22 feet wide of easement or a right-of-way. It's on a 22% grade, and you can't see, and it violates the ability of motor vehicles to see their way around it because the fence is 6 foot high. And so if you're turning down there, I've had an accident there, personally. And it's an unsafe place. But that fence says right in the code, and I gave it to our city attorney right there, it says that fence can't be there without your permission, and I brought that up to the city a year and a half ago. And that fence still exists there, and it's still a problem. We have an alleyway, 2 or 3 alleyways running right through houses. I have a neighbor who comes across the street and she says, I'm trying to put a drain on my property without going through any city property.
Mr. Edgar, your time's up.
Don't I get 5 minutes as a representative of a nonprofit?
No, as a representative of a recognized neighborhood, you would get 5 minutes, but you're not a recognized neighborhood group.
And that's in a public hearing, isn't it? Isn't that in a public hearing? This is citizen comment.
Either way, I told you up front you had 3 minutes.
Well, thank you. I don't, first of all, I don't want to, we just got to get some of this stuff resolved. Tony, I would like very much to meet with you personally. Could you avail that opportunity of me?
I won't meet with you alone, Paul.
Okay, well, you meet
You
with...
made accusations against multiple staff members. I will consider meeting with.
Okay, pull together your meeting crowd, whoever it is, let's put something together, let's resolve these things.
Thank you. Mr. Gifford.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford and I live in Oregon City. Mine won't be quite as sexy. But I did want to tag on to the school district's presentation. One of the things that they mentioned that although the current bond started off at much more than $1.14, it went down. So they're asking for a dime more now. But over the life of the bond, through refinancing, I'm surprised that Larry didn't mention that. They're pretty proud of how many millions of dollars they've saved by refinancing. And there's a really good possibility, but they can't promise anything, that it's going to be even less than that. So it's a good investment. And with Mr. Shaw, we spent countless hours on those. I can't believe how many people were involved in that process. There were a lot of people involved in that process of what we needed for our schools. And if you needed a more in-depth presentation, the school district also gave, well, the school district didn't. Who did? Some citizens gave a the school board, there you go. School board gave a presentation to the Oregon City Business Alliance last month at their forum, which leads me to my comment for today is next Tuesday, Business Alliance meeting again for our monthly presentation. And it's going to be on a subject that is later on this agenda regarding the vehicle registration fee. So I would encourage anybody interested in that for a much more in-depth discussion than you possibly get here because we have lengthy questions and answers, as some of you know. Next Tuesday, the 23rd at 11:30 to 1, luncheon at the Abernathy Center, but tonight would be the last night to register. So I'm sorry the timing on these things is always so awkward, but we have to let the facility know how many people we're expecting.
Is that it?
No, I noticed some bushes. That was going to be it, but oh no, you asked. Speaking of visibility, which Mr. Edgar pointed out, I was very pleased to see the bushes by Fred Meyers cut down because they have been up so tall and my wife is so small. When she walks along that way, you can't see her at all. And they've just been whacked down. I love it. It's just, I mean, the visibility there is so much, so greatly improved. Anyway, I don't know who did that, but
Thank you.
yay. You're not going to ask if there's anything else?
No.
Okay. Once burned, twice shy.
So I'm going to make a modification to the agenda because we have county staff in the audience. I'm going to move 7C up, and we're going to take that now. So this is 18-41, Clackamas County and Clackamas City's consideration of enacting a countywide vehicle registration fee.
I believe their staff is here for 7B.
7B?
Library. E is in
Oh,
bold.
well, silly me. Okay, we'll take the intergovernmental agreement amendment 3 for the library district.
Great.
Mo wants to give a presentation about a bill. Oh, wait.
It'll just be 20 minutes. That's what you give Public Works.
Are you both trying to get fired?
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you very much. Tonight, I am here to request your approval of the Third Amendment to the Library District Intergovernmental Agreement, and I did that just for you, Dan, instead of IGA.
There you go.
Which will allow the Oak Lodge and the Gladstone libraries to be built. The three major changes to the amendment, to the agreement as it is now is it would designate the county and not the city of Gladstone as the eventual recipient of retained funds currently held by in trust by the district to support the construction of new library facilities for the Gladstone and the Oak Lodge service areas. It would establish Clackamas County as a permanent library service provider for the Oak Lodge Library Service Area and memorializes the intent for Clackamas County to construct and manage 2 new libraries using district distribution, accumulated reserves, and other revenues. So Gladstone would effectively become a branch of the Oak Lodge Library, pretty much in the same way that Hoodland is a branch of the Sandy Library right now. And it would eliminate language regarding service area boundary changes, which were originally contemplated when it was anticipated that the city of Gladstone would construct a single facility to serve both Gladstone and Oak Lodge. So that kind of got flipped on its head, so that's getting fixed. None of these changes impact the Oregon City Library directly, except to help provide robust library services to the Oak Lodge and Gladstone areas. And since we are a consortium, that helps all of us. I support this amendment. The library board supports this amendment. The representative to the Library District Advisory Committee from our library board supports it. And we hope that you support it as well. Available tonight are Laura Zentner and Greg Williams from the county to give you more information and to answer any questions that you might have. Would you like them to come up?
Come on down. You're the next contestant.
You get 3 minutes.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. As mentioned, my name is Laura Zentner, and I'm the Director of Business and Community Services in Clackamas County. And with me is Greg Williams, the Deputy Director of Business and Community Services in Clackamas County. As mentioned, we are here in regards to the amendment to the Library District Master IGA. And I just wanted to give you an update that we have to get 2/3 of the cities to pass this amendment in order for this to move forward. I just wanted to give you a progress update. So far we have, and there's 11 cities, library cities. We have 9 out of the 11. So we have Lake Oswego that's passed it, Westland, Estacada, Gladstone, Malala, Wilsonville, Sandy, Milwaukee, Happy Valley, and Canby did not pass it. So you are our last city that we are presenting to, and we would appreciate very much if you would pass it. And then I have Greg here with me who can give you some additional information regarding the amendment and some of the background.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give so. Thank you, Mo. Mo did a wonderful job of summarizing the history of the amendment. As Mo mentioned, these amendments were driven by a settlement agreement that the county entered into with the city of Gladstone. Originally, the plan was for the city of Gladstone to construct a single library in the Gladstone area to serve both the Oak Lodge and the Gladstone service areas. For various reasons, those plans did not come to fruition. Eventually, those discussions led into litigation. In October of 2017, the county and the city of Gladstone settled that litigation. And the settlement agreement does call for the county to construct and operate 2 new library locations. One will be a 6,000 square foot library within the city of Gladstone. It will be on the site of the current Gladstone City Hall. Gladstone is going to lease the property back to the county for $1 a year. The second facility will be estimated to be approximately 19,000 square feet, located somewhere within the Oak Lodge service area. And right now we're working with community members to kind of figure out exactly where that might be. One of the potential locations is the Concord School property that has recently been acquired by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. As Mo said, these amendments are more technical amendments to allow us to go forward with those plans. In developing these amendments, we did have a public process. We had we called it the Settlement Agreement Implementation Task Force, which consisted of staff from both City of Gladstone, the county, and some public representatives. And together we worked out the amendments. And as Laura said, we've been taking those to cities and asking for their support. And so we're here tonight to ask you for your support as well. And should you have any questions, both Laura and I would be happy to answer.
Questions? I have a couple. So the reason I pulled this from the consent, and I did pull it off the consent agenda, it was supposed to be on the consent agenda a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to have this discussion. In the agreement, section 2, 2.4 is added, and it reads somewhere along the line, but the last sentence is what really caught my eye. It says, Clackamas County shall be considered a library city in all respects for the Oak Lodge Library Service Area. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around Clackamas County as a city. And the other part I have a hard time with is calling Oak Lodge a city when they really should be a city. We're way past the time when Oak Lodge should have incorporated and be taking care of their own stuff. So, and Mo, as far as our library is concerned, those are all city employees, right?
Yes.
And
Everybody that works for me at the library is a city employee.
right, but according to this agreement, then the folks who work at the Gladstone Library are going to be county employees?
That's correct.
Why?
Because
Why should Gladstone get a free pass on, not having to employ library people in the city of Gladstone?
So I would say they're not getting a free pass. They are actually going to take their library district distribution, and that will be transferred to Clackamas County. In addition to that, they are going to contribute $200,000 per year towards library operations, and then all their employees will transfer to us, and we will manage both of the libraries for
Okay.
them.
That was the only thing. I just have a real hard time, and I'm gonna vote to approve this, but we have a, shall we say, a contentious relationship with the Board of County Commissioners on occasion, and I hesitate to give them any more authority than they already have. But like I said, I'm going to let this go. Renata, do you have anything for us?
No, I support this.
Okay. Then with that, is there a motion?
Move to approve intergovernmental agreement amendment number 3, Library District of Clackamas County.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Ides. Further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mangelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. And Ms. Henry, do you still serve on the Budget Committee for Oregon City?
No, actually, I think I was on the budget committee for about 10 years.
But thank you for your service.
Yes,
I wanted to make sure we said
You're very
it.
welcome. Great.
Thank you
so
guys.
much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So back to the regular order, the Oregon City Tourism Plan, 18-493, Mr. Underwood.
Thank you, Mayor. One of my favorite subjects, tourism. This is actually a revisit of this discussion from our September 19th meeting, where staff presented 2 options before the commission for the leadership structure to implement the tourism plan. The first option 1, was the 1 FTE position, full-time equivalent position option, which left about $70,000 on the table for program funding and grant matching dollars, funding a position at about $80,000 all in. Option 2 is the new hire option, which left $100,000 on the table for programs and grant matching funds, but would require reallocation of some economic development services because staff would be taking on a little more workload with the tourism. Ensuing this discussion led to the question as to whether a contract position would be a viable option for tourism implementation. Staff researched this scenario as directed by the commission, and we're coming back with findings that you have in your staff report this evening. And so to sum those up, without a specific date, an end date, or specific work product, the contractor model doesn't seem to be a good fit for the tourism implementation. Tourism is a key function of the city. That's been passed by resolution. So the person working to implement the plan would also serve a key function. This is interpreted by the IRS as typically an employer-employee relationship. It's also anticipated that the commission will want to provide direction and some feedback to this person at some point, which really essentially eliminates the possibility for a contract position. So with that said, staff maintains the recommendation for option 1 as the best option to implement the tourism strategy. This option would provide the focus that was initially intended by the commission, and the position would be the go-to person and the face of Oregon City tourism. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Who wants to go first?
I'll wait.
Well, I guess I'm sure I have some company here when I say the last thing I want to do is hire an FTE, because of all the PERS things that we have to go through. But on the other hand, is we have to question ourselves about how seriously do we want to take our tourism plan, tourism period in the city. And so that leads me to saying that I would have more emphasis on a FTE because that person would start with this from the ground up and would continue it on. Because eventually, if we just use the contractor, that would probably be for a year, and then we'd think about hiring the FTE. So I'm thinking maybe we should start with the FTE first, so that person is very familiar with how this all started and would continue on, because tourism is not going to stop in this city. It's going to be a continuing program. That's where I'm at. All right?
Oh, go ahead. Ladies
No,
first.
you go ahead. I want to respond to your comments.
Oh, I think I'd like to respond to yours.
Okay, kids, come on.
Commissioner
In that
Mangelberg.
case, I'll jump in, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Commissioner Mangelberg.
I echo Commissioner Shaw's recommendation. I also think a full-time FTE commitment to the tourism plan implementation is a really important step. Tourism is very much a relationship-based endeavor. It's relationships with tourism providers. It's relationships with granting organizations, regional players, and county players that can really leverage and maximize our opportunities around tourism. We have a lot of great tourism assets already to promote, with more on the horizon with the Legacy Project and others. So it's an exciting time having someone that is skilled and well-versed in tourism, building those connections and committed to its success in the long term is really going to put us ahead, and it's going to move our program forward the way we want it to. So I fully support a full-time FTE dedicated to this effort.
Thank you. Commissioner Rai.
So I support the hiring of a full-time employee, and mostly because I don't think we have a choice in the matter when it comes to the two options. The contract or the definition of an employee, I think if we went the contractor route, that we could be liable for not following the regulations concerning employee versus contractor. I don't want to go down that path. I also think that the having an employee creates buy-in. As a city employee, you're around all the other employees all day. You have interaction with other departments. You can just walk down the hall and go talk to someone else about what is going on there. With a contractor, there's often working from a different location and not always having that available interaction. Another comment I have is that we need to get the plan approved and the employee hired as soon as possible so that the plan can be implemented before the Riverwalk is complete and the courthouse moves to help to incorporate the Hilltop and the Midtown strategies into the plan so that they're not, they're just a part of all of that. I think it needs to be done sooner rather than later. And also it gives us time to deal with all the transportation and the parking concerns that we have before the Riverwalk comes on board. So I'm supportive of the hiring of an employee soon.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Well, with those statements being made, I realize that this is just for the record. Would everyone agree with me that economic development and tourism are hand in hand, that they're complementary things? One may be considered a component of the other. Would you agree with that, Mr. Underwood?
I would.
Have you been engaged in much tourism to date?
A little, not too much. I concentrate mostly on business recruitment and retention. But there's some tourism aspects to everything that I do.
My question, I'm not opposed to a hire. I'm a little bit disappointed that a third option that was put forward by Mr. Mike Mitchell was a half-time person. And the reason I say that is simply a question of timing. what assets, in fact, I look back to a 2015 report that was generated, and it gave specific action items. Do you recall that report?
I think it was the Point B plan.
It involved such action items as coordinating opening and closing hours of historic offerings and common ticketing and things like that. But we took no action from 2015 to now. And the timing of this hire is all that bothers me. The last report that came before us, the tourism development thing, when you looked at that, we were still planning in 2020. So I'm not in favor, and I realize it's not going to be the prevailing position. I'm not in favor of an immediate FTE for reasons of cost. I think there's plenty of people out there who on a half-time basis would bring a lot to this effort. I disagree with the report from the staff on the value of, but that's limited to the two options. It doesn't include Mike Mitchell's option, which I thought was a good one. I don't like solutions that immediately involve throwing dollars and FTEs at things without a plan in place to do this. So realizing, what format is this going to take? Is it going to report to economic development?
Correct.
Well, realizing that this is going to pass, I hope the commission puts some kind of monitoring on it, that in 90-day periods or something, we get progress reports, because I don't know if we even have a plan do you have a plan that once the position is filled, here's what I'm going to have you do?
I do, yes.
Could you share some of that with us?
Sure, absolutely. And it does include...
Because I feel more comfortable if you were to do that.
Certainly. I'd be happy to do that. And it does include reporting to the commission on a semi-annual basis. That's the first draft, but if the commission would like more, then we could certainly do that. As we mentioned, this post would report to me, and I would make sure that, right off the bat, at the outset, that this person would form a tourism advisory committee seeking approval by the city commission. That's the first thing. They would facilitate the efforts of the tourism advisory committee established by the city commission to develop strategies, programs, and policies to promote tourism. They would develop relationships with local, regional, statewide tourism partners, tourism-based publications and writers, tour operators and travel agents. They would design, develop, and conduct familiarization tours of Oregon City for media event planning, tour operators, and travel agents. They would provide educational program to area hotels, businesses, and existing Oregon City tourism assets, facilities on attractions, and events, and how to act like a destination. They would promote attractions and community events to visitors through multiple media. They would implement existing and develop new advertising and programming strategies for current and subsequent years that will increase Oregon City visitation. They would build campaigns and stories for unique selling points about Oregon City. And they would contribute and monitor the flow of new web content and on the traveloregoncity.com website. And they would gather data and monitor tourism metrics. And then they would prepare annual or semi-annual tourism reports for review by the City Commission. And that's just at the outset. So this isn't a comprehensive description, but once they come in, that's what they would be charged with doing.
And you will be supervising that person and be directly responsible for their output and results?
Yes, I will.
Well, again, I think it's a question of timing, but I realize that the vote is already cast, essentially. I still like Mike Mitchell's plan best of all, but was not even offered as a third item, so.
That does not necessarily mean that just because staff didn't offer us another option, that we couldn't take another option.
Well, I like that because it reminds me of the way my wife handles children, which is you can either do this or that, but sometimes there is another option. I'll defer to you, Mayor, if you want to go next.
Okay, well, since I'm last. We've talked about tourism in Oregon City for, since I was in high school at least. So, 45 years or so. I've always held the belief that Oregon City wasn't going to have a flourishing tourism industry until we had that draw. I think that the Legacy project, both the Riverwalk and the private redevelopment down there is going to be that draw. But it's also going to be a while before we get there. And so all of the other stuff, while it's good, still doesn't provide that basic thing. I've said, I said, you got to have an ocean, you got to have a casino, you got to have a mountain, you got to have something that naturally draws people here. Tourism isn't while it can be developed to be better once you have that draw. We've been talking about tourism for 25, 30 years. We've tried all kinds of different things. We've spent a lot of money doing plans and studies and all that. And we're right back here doing the same thing again. So I would be more in support of, walking before we run, getting a halftime person, getting this program moving and let us evaluate it rather than right off the bat hiring a full-time person. And let's see how that works before we, jump in with both feet. That would be my suggestion. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to proceed with the approach as the mayor suggests, with a halftime person to perform the same duties as Mr. Underwood has said, to be reevaluated possibly as early as every 6 months, on 6-month periods, to decide if we need to move forward with a full-time person.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second.
Do you have a speaker? Do you have a speaker?
A speaker? Oh, I'm on the wrong screen.
Mike Mitchell.
What is going on? Commissioner Mitchell, you want to come up? What?
You called him commissioner.
He's an urban renewal commissioner.
Oh, here we go. That was good. That was good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here, I want to read you a letter from Jonathan Stone, the Executive Director of the Downtown Oregon City Association. Dear Commissioners, I'm sorry I'm unable to join you this evening, but I'm glad that our board member, Mike Mitchell, is able to speak on my behalf. Downtown Oregon City Association has been advocating for years for the city to have a tourism strategy and a centralized tourism function. We believe it is critical to the economic development of downtown and the rest of the city, and is a catalyst for our activities and experiences that benefits residents and visitors alike. Tourism requires persistence in building relationships. I had the opportunity to review a draft of the job description for the proposed tourism coordinator and believe all of the responsibilities are necessary and prudent. The plan represents the opinions of the majority of Oregon City's tourism stakeholders and is based on a great deal of research and predecessor plans. It is a fantastic starting point for the advisory board that hopefully you will set in motion tonight. Its deliverables are what the tourism stakeholders have agreed upon. Downtown Oregon City Association is in support of the plan and requests your affirmative vote tonight. We look forward to continue our partnership of advancing tourism in Oregon City. Best regards, Jonathan Stone, Executive Director, Downtown Oregon City Association. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a motion?
Yes, and I want to preface that, the motion that I believe that a full-time employee would need to be hired in order to accomplish all of the requirements that Eric Underwood just read a few moments ago. So with that, I move to recommend that the City Commission approve the Oregon City Tourism Plan and leadership structure.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? So I'm gonna further discuss here for a second because I want to be clear about one thing. And so we're establishing a new committee, a new advisory committee for the city. Is that right? Correct? And so how are those, I assume those people are going to be appointed by the mayor, as in every other city committee?
It would be, unless,
I want to be clear, I don't want to start.
we would bring it back to the commission for their consideration consistent with what's there. I think we would probably, some of those committees are codified. So I think we need to work through some of the bureaucratic nuts and bolts of how this is going to be set up. But we would be bringing it back consistent with how the other ones are set up. If that's a discussion that the commission would like to have, I will leave that to the commission to decide.
Okay, I just want to be clear that I don't want to be establishing something different than the way all the rest of the system is set up to work.
Good point.
Because I'm not the and it's not just because of me, but because that's what the mayor's supposed to be the leader and is, working through those things. So I just want to make sure that that's a piece of it. Beyond that, then call the roll.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
No.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
No. Motion carries. Moving on. 1441, Clackamas County and Clackamas City's consideration to enact countywide vehicle registration fee. Mr. Conkle.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, commissioners. So Mr. John Lewis had provided some updates on some discussions that were happening at Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting, C4, as it relates to the possibility of implementation of a vehicle registration fee by Clackamas County. County staff met and presented 3 distribution models, which were included in your packet. One was state mandated 60% of the county to the county and 40% to the cities of the vehicle registration fee revenues that would be generated. And the second one would be modified state formula with 50% to the county, 40% to the cities, and 10% set aside for a strategic investment fund, with an expectation that the county would use that 10% of its share as a strategic investments. Number 3 was a modified state formula of 40% to the county, 20% to cities, and 40% set aside for a strategic investment fund. County staff noted that of the 3 counties in the region, Clackamas is the only county with no local funding mechanism for road funding. Multnomah County collects approximately $18 million annually from gas tax and vehicle registration fee, and Washington County collects approximately $49 million from gas tax, vehicle registration fee, local property tax, and a road district. Following discussion, C4 members reviewed the preferences among the models that were proposed, the 3 that were identified, and the consensus came towards a vehicle registration fee of $30, with the exception of Canby, which preferred a fee of $25, and a majority consensus rested on scenario 2, which was a modified state formula of 50% to the county, 40% to cities, and 10% set aside for a strategic investment fund. On September 11th of this year, the Board of County Commissioners held a policy work session on the vehicle registration fee proposal. State law allows a vehicle registration fee to be implemented through a public vote or through board action. It is our understanding that the board is planning an adoption process that would include the county's normal ordinance adoption procedures. As with any ordinance, the vehicle registration fee would be subject to referendum. Before the September C4 and county meeting, Clackamas County Assistant Director of Transportation Mike Besner met with Mr. Lewis, our Public Works Director, as well as other agency staff from around the county. While the topic of the discussion was to what the needs were and the possible uses of the new funding, the responses were varied by jurisdiction. Most cities prioritizing paving, followed by capital projects and sidewalks, ADA, American with Disabilities Act improvements, and then operations. For Oregon City, the funds could be used to help fill the gap between likely to be funded and unlikely to be funded capacity enhancing projects that are already identified in the city's transportation system plan. As Oregon City's growth continues, the House Bill 2017 gas tax and this proposed funding would help in the effort to cover the $98 million funding gap in Oregon City's long-term transportation project funding need. The county has requested a letter of support from the cities, which has been attached for your consideration, and if approved tonight, I would sign and return to the county administrator. As part of the attachments, when we looked at modified revenue distribution scenario number 2, which is what is being recommended, The county share would be 50%, generating approximately $5.5 million annually. A county strategic investment fund of 10% would be set up. That would be approximately 1.1 million, leaving approximately 4.4 million for the city share. Of that 4.4 million city share, Oregon City is estimated to receive approximately $690,000 per year through the $30 vehicle registration fee. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have tonight.
So my question is, the county couldn't do distribution scenario 3 without concurrence from the cities, is that correct?
Because it's less than the 40% mandated.
Yeah, so I mean, state law mandates that it's a 60-40 split. They would have to have agreement from all of the cities before they could do that, right?
I wasn't part of the conversation, but I would assume that if it's a state mandate, you would need all the cities to agree that they're willing to give up a portion of that for the strategic investment fund, which is
Because I
probably
just don't
why
trust
it's
those
number
guys.
2.
Matt, that was the only question I have. Commissioner Wright, do you have something?
No, not right now.
Your question was a good one, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else?
I'd like,
I have a kind of a question or a thought on the strategic investment portion of the set-aside funds. At some point, the city and the county will want to talk about transitioning county-owned roads into city ownership, and usually there's a cost associated with that. It may be of benefit to the city at a certain point. I'm thinking in particular of Beaver Creek Road, where we may want to own that. We may want to control that and make sure that it's to our standards and have some additional funds of the strategic reserve to offset those costs might be helpful. I know in the past, the county's always been happy to hand over county roads, but not with the funds available to bring them up to city standards. So this may be a way around that longstanding issue.
This is a question for Mr. Conkle in view of Commissioner Mengelberg's statement. Is it not true that the city does not take on county roads until they are brought up to city standards?
We have an agreement with the county that requires a minimum condition of the road before we would accept it. There's a minimum asphalt depth that we require to have, which usually requires an overlay to some depth to be provided, which has been a little bit of a barrier for some of these jurisdictional transfers, and the city not wanting to take on the liability of some of the conditions of these roads that are out there right now.
Right. And I ask that because South End Road is a consideration on the hillside, and I'm not sure that this plays into that as much as one would think, since we already have a vehicle in place to make sure that it meets a certain standard before we assume ownership.
The difficulty has been because the county has no identified road maintenance, road funding, that they don't have the ability to invest to even meet that minimum standard to cause that transfer to happen. What we typically see is that as roads have built out with development on either sides of them, particularly subdivisions, and the half streets get put in, we slowly start to see that transfer to city from county, primarily driven by private investment fixing the roads, because they essentially go in and rebuild the infrastructure.
Understood.
Just for clarification in the letter that if this is approved tonight, on the third paragraph, we are also supportive of the proposal to create a strategic investment fund made up of an allocation of the county vehicle registration fee revenue, scenario 2. It is our understanding that the strategic investment fund would be allocated for the improvements of roads that could qualify for jurisdictional transfer to the local agencies, which is consistent with many of the local agency memorandum of understanding for road transfers. The strategic investment fund, if managed correctly, would offer a new tool to promote cross-jurisdictional coordination to meet our mutual congestion relief and maintenance objectives. So we are hoping that this does become an avenue of which, if they're prudent with their funds, we can start to get some of these transfers over.
Anybody else?
is it possible we could move this to a work session? Because I think there's I think we've got to figure out what we're going to do here with, if we do get our funds, what are we going to do with it? We've got to be able to respond to our constituents here, because we're asking them for a fee raise here.
Well, actually, we're not. So the county's going to do this whether we send a letter or not. Because they can do it by board action.
So there's no vote?
No, there's no vote. Under state law, they can send it to a vote, but I think from a political side, it's better for them to pass it as a board action and then hope that it isn't, the organization isn't there to refer it. And we already have the authority to tell Mr. Conkle, and via Mr. Conkle, Mr. Lewis, and whoever else, how we're going to spend the money that we get.
The staff report too mentions where the money could possibly go. So.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the letter in support of the vehicle registration fee, option 2.
Second.
For the discussion, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Shaw?
No.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. Okay, so moving on. Consent agenda, anybody want to pull anything from consent agenda?
Yep.
Nope.
Move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. Mr. Manager, you got anything for us?
Yes, 2 updates tonight. First, as you're well aware, we've been working diligently to try to get High Street buttoned up. There was a significant amount of infrastructure work that went in. We're getting darn close. But that being said, South 2nd, we're going to be doing some significant work in South 2nd, Center to High, which will necessitate the closure of South End Road on October 21st through October 22nd. So we just want to make folks aware that the most expedient way to get all of that actual intersection work done is to close it down, get in there, and get it all done at once.
You realize you're blocking my commute. Just saying.
It's the first thing we thought about when we made the decision. I apologize, Mr. Mayor. We will hopefully get that done as quickly as we can, working through the night, trying to keep traffic moving during the daytime, but we will have significant work going on for 2 night times as well, as which we've done quite a bit of outreach to the neighbors to inform them of the impacts as well as provide them alternatives.
So how late are we working?
We will be working all night for 2 nights. If everything goes well, we will be in there from approximately, I believe it's 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So we've personally talked to all the neighbors?
My understanding is that we provided each of the neighbors letters, updates, contact information, alternatives that could be available to them because of the impact. So, yes.
But
I don't know how big the radius is. My understanding is that staff has been very diligent about reaching out to these
But
neighbors.
at least in the immediate neighbors in the construction zone have all been talked to by someone from the city.
They have received a letter. I do not know if we have individually talked to every homeowner.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just saying, this is one of those situations where you're only talking about maybe 10 or 12 houses. It wouldn't hurt to go the extra mile and knock on people's doors and make sure that everybody understands, because the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get a phone call at 10 o'clock at night.
We will follow up.
Because my cell number is on the city website.
I certainly understand. We will follow up, and that may have happened. I just don't have all the intricate details.
All right, thank you.
Well, that's an interesting discussion in view of the fact that we just passed on our consent agenda the allowance for violating the noise ordinance for that very project. So,
Is that it?
I have an update from Chief Band.
Library update.
So there's a lot going on with the building. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. There's a lot going on with the building right now, and I kind of wanted to summarize some of it. So this is probably going to be more than 3 minutes. One of the things that we did this last week was a sustainability in design session with architects. And to be honest, I kind of had the mindset that your eye roll, I kind of thought it was a waste of time. I did not, I had low expectations going in, but it actually, there was a lot of really good stuff to it. One of the things that's really good about it, the Energy Trust of Oregon, which is essentially a nonprofit, that there's money available. And if you're trying to choose between two systems, they will give you money as an incentive to help offset the costs of going to a more efficient option. So it was certainly worth our time, and they pay a couple $1,000s just for that meeting to take place. And there was a lot of experts that our design team has, and then some of the vendors that they're hiring to do some of this stuff. Everything from orientation of the building and how that affects efficiency, the envelope of the building, what materials we use, the massing of the building. It was pretty interesting, and there was a lot of information in terms of things that are going to really matter when we start trying to value engineer decisions about our budget. Commissioner Shaw was with us on that. I had several staff people there, and then, like I said, a lot of people from their team. We had an employee, we had a really good turnout for our employees. We had some people from City Hall here meet with the design team to go over them kind of getting to know what our team is, what their priorities are, letting our employees sort of voice their opinion on what they wanted to see inside, outside. Their number one concern across the board was security and wanting to work in a place. They know that we talked a lot about transparency in the aesthetic of the building and what it's like for people coming in. But they also want to make sure that they're working in a place that is safe and they don't have to worry about their back as they're going to and from work, going to and from their car, and then certainly while they're at work. Tomorrow night, we've got a lot of people from our design team who are going to be at the police department starting at 6:30. It's gonna be a design process. It's open to everybody in the community, and we really want people to come and show up, take part. That we're spending a significant amount of money. The architects charge us. This is part of what they're charging us, is to have their crew there listening, trying to get as much information as possible, so they can help. It helps them go to work on, things like the aesthetic of the building. What are the building materials people want to see? What would they like to see in the lobby? What do they think about the space around the building? Those sorts of things, the history of the school site, all those sorts of things. This is when we really need people to come, show up, give us some of your time, and there's a lot of money that's gone into this, a lot of work on the behalf of a lot of people in the community. So we really want people to come show up.
Where are you doing this at?
This is at the police department in the commission chambers / court.
Okay.
At 6:30. For people who cannot make that, we're going to be pushing out to our social media a link of a survey that's 5 or 6 questions, trying to elicit the same amount of information from people who can't show up or just don't want to show up about some of the same sorts of themes that will help the designers. We are in the process of finalizing we're down to our candidates for CM, construction manager, general contractor. We have interviews that I think are going to take place on the 29th. We've been going through those packets. Commissioner Shaw has been involved in that, evaluating the packets, and then we're going to have interviews. From what I can tell so far, we have some great candidates. We've been doing some reference checks, some companies that we already had heard good things about, who've done work in the city, around the city. So I think so far, everybody that we've hired has been really delivering to this point. And we're hoping to finalize that with this next partner that we're going to hire. Future dates, I'm almost done. In January, we should by then have our construction manager on board helping us with pricing. In January, what we're planning on bringing in front of the commission is our design team coming with some kind of concept ideas, sketches to kind of present based on what they've gotten so far, get your feedback on that. And there should be some costs. We should have kind of nailed down the cost of more refined about what we're going to be able to afford. Basically, here's a pretty picture and can you afford it? And then this is very rough, but down the road, I get asked this a lot, when are you guys going to break ground? What it is looking like, our tentative schedule is that we will have construction documents sometime around early summer. If you'll remember, the school is going to be vacating at the end of June, and we are hoping to break ground. The first thing we would have to do is take down the existing building that's there, and then hoping to break ground sometime early fall before the rain hits next year. So please show up tomorrow.
Okay. Else?
That's all for tonight, thank you.
Commissioner Shaw, do you have something for Chief?
Well, yeah, and it's an interesting process just because we're using the same template, as I've always said, as we deal with the library. And looking for input from all directions here, because we get accused of not listening up here.
Yeah.
And we're listening here, we listened at the library, we listened for 10 years at Public Works. And so I want to make sure everybody is aware of that we are listening here and you have opportunities to come and have your input here. So it's been a great process. We got some great people on board here, just like we do with the library. So you can be comfortable with that. So I did attend the Industrial Tech Building grand opening up there at the college. A real asset to this community and to the manufacturing world. Mm-hmm. So looking forward to that. And then I just want to remind people that next Tuesday morning is the Oregon City West Linn football rivalry breakfast that the Optimus Club puts on down at the Elks Club at 6:30 Tuesday morning. The mayors will be there.
Yes, we will.
And this is the 98th rivalry game for these guys. So it's pretty exciting, and we're hoping to have a few more people from West Linn this year. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, that's all I got.
Were you finished, Mr. Manager?
Oh, yes, I was.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Ide, anything?
Yeah, a couple. I too attended out at Clackamas Community College and was just completely enamored with all of the machines and what we have, the opportunity that this city has out there, and the whole community. So that was awesome. Also attended, along with Frank, Commissioner O'Donnell, the CRW Watershed Tour, where we got on a raft down at Carver and rafted 8 miles down to Clackamas Park. And I learned a lot. And I think my favorite part was just walking back into an effort that Clackamas County Water Environment Services is doing to clean up stormwater before it actually flows into the river. And I mean, I was enamored with the entire process. I mean, I'm sorry, but I just wasn't aware that you could do that. Like I said, learning a lot. So I was just really impressed with the whole thing. Anyway, it was really a fun event too. And then secondly, I attended the Northwest Housing Alternative groundbreaking of the 24-unit vet village over here on Pleasant Avenue in Oregon City. And even though Oregon City did not plan this event, I would like to publicly apologize to our VFW post here in Oregon City for not including them in the celebrational event. Northwest Housing Alternatives is based in Milwaukee, and they invited the Post from Milwaukee to do the honors there. And it was not a good thing that our Post did not participate, or would not invited to participate, and I'm very sorry about that. And hopefully at the groundbreaking, or excuse me, the ribbon cutting, they will be there.
They will be there.
Yes. And also, I have a lot more things to say, but I think I'll save the remainder of my reports for our November work session when we're going to have those policy reviews.
Commissioner O'Donnell, you got anything?
Oh, a few. In the past few weeks, I've attended the Homeless Coalition meeting. With others, Nancy included, we went to the Industrial Tech grand opening, which is pretty phenomenal. And I immediately went to some previous employers in the machining business and encouraged them to get more deeply involved. And that's a phenomenal thing. I mean, there's employment opportunities waiting to be had for those young people. In fact, the educators told us they have trouble keeping their people there until they achieve graduation because businesses steal them. So that's how successful it is. And other than that, I was on a watershed tour along with Commissioner Ide, and I can report that we can come down a river for 5 hours together in a raft, and neither one of us went over the side or assisted the other in going over the side. And quite honestly, she held her own on the paddle. So it was a good day and very informational.
Commissioner Mengelberger, are you still on?
Yes, I have nothing to report.
All right. And finally, for me, I did attend the grand opening at the Industrial Technical Center. I tried to show up to the groundbreaking, but I apparently had it on my schedule wrong, so I showed up exactly at the time they were tearing everything down. Other than that, the normal kinds of meetings, things that I normally do offline. I guess, I did not go to the watershed thing because I have a rule, I don't ride anything that doesn't have a motor. So, not much interest in paddling anywhere. Other than that, unless there's anything else to go to the order, we're done.